interestingly, the impact here is increase in earnings, and this is key for a couple of reasons. One is the Commonwealth agreed that the measure of a good outcome was whether or not people who went through JVS services made more money a year after they finished going through JVS than they did a year before they started. And there's reasons why that time frame was picked out. But that's the measure of success, is an increase in earnings. And that's interesting for a couple of reasons. This is the third project that the state has done. And so they were willing to move away from a strict what's my cost of savings to what's a better outcome for the people who are going through this program. And so I give a lot of credit to the Commonwealth for that. So we worked with the Commonwealth to draft the pay for success contract that includes all of those outcomes and outcome measures and outcome prices that I talked about before. We worked with JVS to make sure that they were ready to implement this capital. We entered to the private markets. Bank of America Merrill Lynch was our placement agent. We did this as a private equity offering. We had over 40 impact investors. You can see some of them listed up there in the cities. CJ Combined Jewish Philanthropies, which is based in Boston and a long-time supporter of JVS. Prudential was an early investor, community applicants coming with others. And, a variety of investors, both individuals, sort of commercial banks, if you will, or insurance companies like Prudential and Bank of America Merrill Lynch, as well as donor-advised funds. We were able for the first time to get donor-advised funding into this. We raised about, I think it's 12.4 million from the impact investors. That money will flow down to JVS over a 6-year period. They will serve up to 2,000 adult English language learners in the greater Boston area. The outcomes will be measured by a third-party evaluator, mobility, and to the extent that we meet those outcomes, Massachusetts will make payments that go back to the impact investors. Just really briefly, the program tracks that JVS is offering are across 4 different programs: rapid employment, English advancement, occupational skills training, and bridges to college. And that just gives you a sense of what it is that they're trying to achieve. I just want to take a step back and talk about the impact that this has had on government. As I said, this is the third project that Massachusetts has engaged in. The first one was marriage juvenile justice and anti-recidivism. The second was focus on chronic homelessness. And it's changed the way, and I'm very close still with the people in government, it's changed the way they talk about how you measure and obtain services within government. And it's broken down some of the silos. I want to read the book on the anthropologist book on silos. I think by human nature, that's how we organize ourselves, because in every organization I've ever been in, that's what happens. But this has really helped to break down silos within government, because different agencies, the JVS project is the Labor and Workforce Development and Department of Higher Education, as well as the budget agency, administration and finance, now talk to each other about something other than how much you're going to cut your budget next year, right? And so it's really fostered a very different conversation. Labor and Workforce Development and Education have paired up, and they've redone how they're procuring services. They've issued a new procurement for services for labor and workforce development writ large, not just around this particular issue area, because this kind of thinking, this way of approach to obtaining services has really had really profound effect. We always say at social finance that our goal when this project is done in 6 years is not to do this project again. If it works, Massachusetts should just fund it, right? They should fund the $389 million that you need to open new restaurants. But we're providing them a way to get there. So I'm happy to take questions during the Q&A, but that's me, and that's JVS, and happy to be here.
Thank you, Navjeet. So this stuff obviously can get pretty complex and wonky pretty fast. So I really would encourage you to reach out to social finance and NFF, I think, and other organizations that can support these kinds of projects. I think having a spirit guide as we make this transition can be really helpful, because it does get pretty complicated once you get into financing and some of the contracting details. So it is my great pleasure to introduce our third speaker, who needs no introduction. So I'm just going to invite him up to the stage. Please join me in welcoming President Sorrell to the stage for our last talk.
All right, so first order of business is I'm a huge Chad Houser fan. Chad and I have gone back and forth doing these things for years now. And if you have not been to eat at the restaurant, I would tell you, I don't think it's the third best restaurant in Dallas. I think it's the best restaurant. So, I'm going to take care of a little technical difficulty here first. This is why I'm the president of the college and not IT director. Good, all right. So, welcome again to our campus. I appreciate your presentation very much. Thank you. So we're going to spend a little time today talking about what we do here at Baldwin College, which is called nation building. Yes, took the clip. I see how you operate. All right. So we are here at Baldwin College. I'll give you a little bit of backstory. We're in a neighborhood that has historically been neglected. Okay, if you've driven around this area, I am not telling you anything you haven't figured out. Things don't look like this because people invested in them. All right, we have a garbage dump that for years was closer to this community than a grocery store. Okay, people shouldn't live that. All right, they shouldn't. And when we started our work here at Baldwin College, we decided that, you know what, we're going to do more than just sit behind the walls and build a great school. We're going to invest in building a great community, which completely influenced the way we saw ourselves and the way in which we see the relationship of higher education to the communities they serve. So our time together today, we're going to talk about this idea that we must all be nation builders. Now, as a college president, and I also double as a professor, I'm going to do a little teaching. So the first thing we have to do is define our term, right? So what is a nation building? So we define nation building as the belief that institutions of higher education should turn themselves outward and address the needs of the communities they serve and the most significant societal problems of today. Now we know that's a little bit broader than what people may talk about at some other schools. Too bad they're wrong and we're right, okay? Now, the issue of the day, and we're just gonna let one of the great capitalists define the issue of the day for all of us. Andrew Carnegie in The Gospel of Wealth said the problem of our age is the proper administration of wealth. Right? Now, he might have been framing it a little bit differently, but what we know really is that it's not just the administration of wealth, it's the lack of wealth in places that desperately need it. The lack of investment in places that desperately need it. So here's how we see the problem today. 45 million Americans live in poverty. 45 million Americans live in poverty. Over 50% of the students who will go to college today are on Pell Grants. If you're on a Pell Grant, that means typically that you are a member of the lowest socioeconomic strata in the country, that you need additional support to be able to access higher education. Baldwin College, 85% of our students are on Pell Grant. This is one of the highest Pell Grant rates in the country. 70% of our students get zero expected family contribution. So stop and think about what that means. That means for 70% of our student body, there isn't anyone in their families that they can expect or rely on to help them with their college education. Now that doesn't mean that they don't deserve to go to college. It doesn't mean they don't deserve an education. It means that we have to be cognizant of this as we create an educational experience for these students. That means that perhaps the reason why students aren't fully engaged in a class has nothing to do with how incredibly boring you are as a professor, right? It could have everything to do with what went on before they got to class. We can't ignore that. We don't ignore that. We think that it is fundamentally important for all of us to understand these things as we go forward. We also know that we live in a country where for the first time in our history, the majority of students in public education live on free and reduced lunch lives. So I want you to think about that for a moment. Imagine that you go to school and you have no idea where your meals are going to come from. You don't know where breakfast is going to come from. You don't know where lunch is going to come from. You don't know where any of it's going to come from. A fundamental insecurity. Clearly, I've exceeded the reach of the microphone. So, you don't know where your meals are coming from. Something as basic and as simple as your expectation to eat. Just an expectation to eat. Now, if you don't know what you're going to eat, might you also not know that the lights are going to be on when you come home? That the heat will be working? That you'll be in a place that is safe enough for you to study? And if you're worried about those things, is Chaucer really going to resonate with you? Are you going to be consumed with algebra? Or might you just be consumed with, damn, why does my life have to be this way? Why do we make things so hard for the people who need us most? That's not who we need to be, it's not who we should be, it's not who we can be. So, if the majority of students in college already are on Pell Grants, if the majority of students now in K through 12 are on free and reduced lunches, and that's before this group gets to college, then what we know is that the defining characteristic of higher education in this country moving forward is going to be poverty. Because the overwhelming majority of students are going to be from poverty-stricken families and communities. That means that education today must change. We can no longer expect it to be just what people have historically thought it to be. We have to fight that. One of the reasons why this is an unusual conversation to be had, but a necessary one, is because the people who could help solve the problem aren't. Let's think about this slide for a moment. Billionaires made so much money just last year. Not historically, not the last 10 years. Last year alone, they made so much money, they could have ended extreme poverty 7 times. 7 times. How much money do you need? How much stuff can you buy? There literally comes a point where you have bought everything you need. You're just buying dumb stuff after a while. Okay? I mean, think about this. This is just 1 year. 1 year. So let's just say they decided, you know what I'm going to do? Me and my friends, the Billionaires Club, we're going to take all of our earnings in 2018 and we're going to end extreme poverty. They'll still be back to making money the next year. This is a level of selfishness and a level of societal and civic abandonment that is reprehensible. And they need to be told it's reprehensible. We need to stop making people who are selfish feel as if they are saints. They are not saints. They are reprehensible. The fact that you allow this to exist is absolutely wrong. So you know what? You can't depend on those who are above to incite revolution. Right? That's not how it works. Revolutions never start from the people who are in power, because the people who revolt against them are the ones who aren't in power. I mean, think about it. What are you going to do? You know, I'm king, and I'm really upset with myself, so I'm going to rebel against myself. Come on. That's not how it works. Revolutions start from below. They start from the people who are so angry, who are so affected, and who have been disillusioned and disengaged and disempowered, that they stand up and say, no more. No more. At Paul Quinn College, we have stood up and we have said, no more. So we've decided we're changing everything that we do. From this point forward, we have one goal and one goal only. We're going to end poverty. That's it. Right? I mean, graduation rates are important. You know what? We've raised graduation rates 30%. They're going to jump another 30%. we figured that part out. Our retention rate has gone from 33% when I arrived to 67, 68%. The first time freshmen from fall to spring have jumped to 89%. I mean, we figured this thing out. All right? But that's what we're supposed to do. We don't want to be praised for what you're supposed to do. Right? Do something more. That more is designing an institution that is capable of being replicated and enlisted in the fight against poverty. That's what we're here to do. And this is what we decided to do. We created our own version of higher education. Literally, there have never been urban work colleges before. We're the very first one in existence, and urban work colleges take the 150-year-old model of work colleges, which requires students to work at the same time that they go to school. Right? Our students, this is the model. The difference is the other work colleges are in rural areas. So they can engage the students in farming. Well, we have a farm, but it's a little different. In pottery, we don't have pottery. I don't even know what it's called to do pottery, right? Pottery and all the other things. So we engage the corporate community to do that. So this model allows us, and this is how it works. All of our residential students participate in the work program. That means that they go to work. The students work between 10 to 15 hours per week. All right? Now, many of the students work in big corporate places like AT&T, JCPenney, FedEx, JP Morgan Chase. Some work at places like the Community Foundation of Texas. Some work at places like some of the area independent schools. Our largest partner is the Dallas Leadership Foundation. So they work in nonprofits as well. And these businesses teach the students how to apply what it is that they are learning in class to their real world lives, which we think is sort of important. They receive an annual cash stipend. We thought that was sort of important because, you know, here's the thing people forget. Everyone is already working in college. 70%, more than 70% of the students who are in college today, who are considered dependent students, they work more than 20 hours per week. Over 80% of the students who are in college today, who are considered independent students, they're working more than 30 hours per week. The difference is students are trying to manage home, school, working, right? What we said was, what if we collapse school and working and give them the ability just to focus on life and learning and give them back 33% of the time in their lives? We thought that was important. That's what this allows us to do. We give the students an option of graduating with less than $10,000 a day. Now, many students choose to graduate with more than that because for a lot of them, this is the first time their families have had access to capital, which is an entirely different conversation and a much, much bigger problem. One of the other things we did was we got rid of textbooks. All right? And here's the thing. We are unknowingly creating a caste system in our classroom. We had some students who could afford books, some who couldn't. Students, they weren't choosing not to buy books because they didn't want to. They were choosing to use the money for something more pressing in their lives. Turns out there's lots of other material that you can find on the internet. So instead of giving professors the ability to assign books they've written and had in their pockets, right, we decided to do away with textbooks and use open resource material. Yep. Coming to the curriculum at Paul Quinn College in the fall. So this is the model. This is how tuition worked this year. Our old cost was charging roughly $24,000 for students in school. We cut that down to $14,495. The $9,900 is for students who live off campus. This is how you pay for it. Almost $6,000 comes from the Pell Grant. $5,000 comes from the work program credit. So think about this. Right out of the gate, 85% of our students, 11,000 of the 14,500 is already covered. Right? The average student picks up another another 1,200 in grants and SEOG money, which leaves the unmet need around 2,300, which means you can graduate in 4 years on less than $10,000. It's just that simple. So we think this model works. We've been using it the last 4 or 5 years. It's working beautifully. We can't meet the need for students who want to come right now. To be honest with you, the last 3 or 4 years, we've had to use waiting lists to manage the desire for people to come, which has never happened in our, 146-year history. So we are thrilled about that. But that's a problem, right? Because you want to be able to provide an opportunity for those individuals who have qualified to attend the school. So what we're going to do is we're going to expand nationally. We're going to create a national network of urban work colleges. You're going to live in cities now where you will look up and there will be a Paul Quinn College there. If there's not a Paul Quinn College there, then we will partner with another institution and create a consortium where that institution will combine and adopt our format. And if that doesn't work, we're currently in discussions with a very, very well-known, large, publicly funded state institution, not in Texas, that will adopt the model and will embed it in there as well. So what we have decided to do is bring our model to the people, okay? Because the model works. It's not enough to have a solution and not be able to scale, right? We want more people to be able to embrace that. And this is critically important. This is part of ending poverty. We've got more people who need to have access to the ability to earn a living. It's great to go to school, but it's great to go to school and also have a job. And have that job tie into what it is you're interested in so that you have the ability to work and earn and plan for a life that is a life that lifts you out of the ravages of poverty. So, this looks better in the dark. It's purple and black. It's striking visually. You would love it if you could see it. Okay? All right, there it is. There it is. That is our ethos. We over me. We believe that the needs of a community supersede the wants of an individual. You do not get to be selfish at Paul Quinn College. You do not get to be selfish in the Quinnite Nation. There's no place for selfishness among nation builders. You all are going to be nation builders. You're here today because you have an interest in something greater than yourself. That is noble. But our job is to point you in the direction of how to achieve these goals, to help you be bigger than yourself. This is how you do that. You do that by embracing the problems of the day, providing solutions that can be scaled, getting behind those institutions that are doing so, writing really big checks to those places, like Cafe Momentum at Paul Quinn College. I just want to throw that out there. Little plug, no one clap. I don't think they did our need, Chad. I don't think they did our need, right? But the point really is, thank you for being here. Thank you for caring enough to engage in the work of the day. Thank you for caring enough to even ask the question and to seek the knowledge. But that's just the first step. The next step is actually doing the work. So again, you're always welcome at Paul Quinn College. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being nation builders. Take care.
Thank you for hosting us today. I really love the space. Actually, we're going to all stay up here on the stage. I'm going to invite the other panelists up.
We got you again?
If you guys don't mind staying for 10 minutes, right, everybody chairs. Yeah, that's good. So we've got about 10 to 12 minutes for questions from the audience. So if you've got any questions, just raise your hand. We'll maybe replicate the model from before. Let's take 3 questions, and we'll try to answer them. And if we've got time, we'll do another round. But I got a ton of questions, but let's see. Question right there.
I represent the oldest real estate trade organization, which is NAREB, National Association of Real Estate Brokers, the Dallas president. And what I wanted to know is how can we partner with that model? Because like you said, when students leave college, the debt to income ratio from school is so high that that contributes to the 42% African American home ownership rate. So we're here to try to partner with you all or any nonprofit to try to change that model to try to close that wealth gap for African Americans. Thank you.
I mean, for us, it's really, really simple. Is Chris Dowdy still here? Is Chris still here?
No.
All right, so we'll get him back. He's our Vice President of Academic Affairs. We should just set up a program whereby you guys come in a couple times a year and talk to our students about home ownership, right? So that they understand it, and you can't just tell them once, right? Like you've got to repeat that message. And we can make sure every student has that information and understands how to protect their credit and how to create down payments and all of that. I mean, we do some great work with Habitat for Humanity. They've been tremendous partners of ours through the years, but I think this is fantastic. We would love to do that. No, you're welcome.
Question on the right?
We've got two questions from here and then.
Hi, my name is Angela Willis, and I represent Road Economic Empowerment Enterprises, and I'm also working with the Collin County Juvenile Detention Center. So I have two questions. First of all, one is thank you, Dr. Sorrell, for all of the work that you've done and for just kind of opening my eyes up because I'm involved with the community here in Dallas because this is my roots. And one of the things that I do is do educational seminars, which has to do with financial empowerment and as well as dealing with the cost of caregiving for people that have to deal with Alzheimer's and dementia. And it's taking place in my church, and I'm not here to try to do a plug or anything like that. But you opened my eyes because one of the things that I'm passionate about is trying to provide more help for people that are dealing with dementia and Alzheimer's. And as a result of this, it just, like I said, opened my eyes to really see that there's a need for people to help pay for the cost of it. And I hope to one day have a fund for people who are even in my position because it can get expensive. And this is interesting because it does deal with poverty. Because a lot of people have run out of money and they don't know where to go. And this is really I believe, a good format for us to think and be creative. So I appreciate you for that. And as far as Cafe Momentum, I would love for us to have dialogue or talk about how you could come and maybe talk to our commissioners there and the directors there about maybe perhaps having a program in the summer because our kids have nothing to do during the summer for a program that you have.
My answer is yes. I was quoted one time as saying that I wanted to open up more cafe windows in Starbucks. That was before I realized there were 27,000 Starbucks. Fun fact, in China they open Starbucks every 15.8 hours. So I've since changed that model to a local coffee company. No, but our goal is there are 65,000 kids in the state of Texas that enter the juvenile system every year. So working with 100 kids a year is, chipping away at the very, very tip of the iceberg. So our goal is definitely working with them.
Hi, Dina Jackson with the Dallas Women's Foundation, and my question is kind of for you, Chad, and then maybe for Najit. When you think about, so we are a moderate-sized public foundation, and we provide funding sometimes 1 year, sometimes multiple years. When you think about reporting on grants, and you can, grants like mine, outcomes versus outputs, do you feel pressure from your funders to actually focus more on the outputs and to count bodies and to count heads or count meals or whatever versus saying, yes, your money did not maybe fund directly this output, but it's a part of the bigger picture? And when you do your annual reporting, how could we as funders help you focus more on outcomes and report on outcomes?
That's a really great question. There so much is, like I hate the term recidivism because I think that that's such a low bar and such low-hanging fruit. I think it would be the equivalent of saying to you, how many freshmen can you get signed up? Like, who cares if they do anything else? I think it's just such a low bar. So I think on our end, that's where we have to be very transparent as an organization. And when we go have conversations with others and when we fill out grants, we're very honest about our success and failures. Because I think that it's important that people understand we're dealing with a population of kids that I mean, even the juvenile justice industry, the term they use to describe it is throwaway, which means that they've been discarded since birth. So much of what we're doing is educating people on who these kids really are. And I think that comes down to when you're talking about outputs and outcomes, that's where it's important on our end, that we're telling a complete story and not just giving you one small piece and letting you focus, or us focus on one small piece of who these kids are.
That's what we're trying to talk
Sorry. The only thing I would add to that is that the philanthropic community has been really catalytic in the Pay for 6,000 social impact bond world, in part because they don't have the money to end extreme poverty, and they realize that. And so philanthropy has been incredibly important to us in being often supporting the financings that we're doing, providing a first loss guarantee or subordinate debt that really helps catalyze a tremendous amount of private capital coming in. So, philanthropy, I think, can be a tremendous partner in helping organizations like CHAZ that are focused on outcomes really achieve those outcomes.
I think another area for philanthropy that we haven't talked a lot about today, but I think it's really crucial, is building a data infrastructure that allows all of this to be easier. It's enough that Chad has to put great plates of food out on the table every day, but he's also simultaneously solving this larger social challenge. And now we want him to become a PhD in outcomes impact tracking. I think that's probably asking too much. And I would like to see our philanthropic partners help us build some common data infrastructure so that it's easier for funders and providers and government to keep track of our progress and not depend upon the providers themselves to develop that capacity and resources and spend resources to do it. Do we have another question?
I have a mic over.
We have lots of questions. Actually, why don't we do 2 questions before you guys answer, just so we can get through a few more because we're running out of time. Go ahead.
Cassie Johnson from Traffico. So in terms of trying to measure impacts on a lot of the things that you guys are working on, a lot of times you have conflicting interests, right? So it comes down to money. So for example, your citizens, private prisons, they're losing money when you do a good job, right? So you end up with a lot of understanding where people's pockets are, because incentives are what drives things, right? We all kind of live off incentives, no matter what we want to kind of think through. So if you're impacting that bottom line and you're saving society money, those people over here are going to be mad that you're doing a good job, right? So how do you create a bigger pie where you give them different things to kind of feel good about? So if you're eliminating poverty, sometimes the cost of poverty, you're not working in financial services for a long time. Say for example, not crushing all big banks, but a lot of big banks make really good money on fees to poor people, right? So when they change that, you're like, all right, so how do I make more fees on that large population that doesn't really know or understand banking to a great extent? So there's always those incentive balances that you kind of have to manage. So you're trying to build nation builders, you're impacting lives in different ways of measuring, saving the community or saving the state $300-something million. How do you kind of keep
Can I ask you a clarifying question?
Yeah.
Are you asking us how do we show compassion for people who are profiting off those who are suffering?
No, that's not my question. My question is how do you kind of minimize to a certain, it's almost like you have to kind of go around those people.
Okay.
So how do you go around those people sometimes who have very deep pockets?
So I'll just speak for ourselves. I have no interest in going around it. I want to go over it.
Amen.
Right? Like, I'm not going to spend one moment in my life worried about how people who had the ability to address those who are suffering and motivate them to get engaged. They should be engaged because this is fundamentally wrong. Right? I mean, I think about prisons and private prisons. Like, I understand the prison industrial complex, right? I mean, I understand that there's some towns where that's their source of economic development. But where is it written that your source of economic development should be on the backs of people's families? I mean, this is just right and wrong. And I mean, there are individuals who, I think you have to look for ways around it. But on this one, we don't have interests that can ever be aligned if you're making money off the people I'm trying to help.
There's something criminal in the idea that you actually make money on making sure that people commit crimes again.
Right.
Like that's wrong. So maybe that entails why we need to completely change the narrative. But that is 100% unacceptable. That is not. It's unacceptable. Period.
We're not going to be friends.
Okay, so we have less than 5 minutes left. We've got a bunch of hands. We're going to take 4 rapid fire questions, and if you guys wouldn't mind holding off until we get all 4 in, and then we'll wrap up.
Hi, I'm Gretchen Martins. I work at the intersection of conscious capitalism and the global compassion movement. And I'm wondering, that astounding figure about the billionaires, and you look at the United States, 1 in 5 children live with food insecurity, and we throw away enough food to feed the entire planet 2.5 times over. To me, that says that our orientation as a society is way off. When we talk about nation building, where is the fundamental discussion about the crisis of compassion that we have as a people? It's not an issue of commitment. We have plenty of money, but we have an absolute lack of resolve to do anything about it.
So my question had to do with the social impact bonds or pay for success, and I just wanted to know whether you had any recommendations as to how to get the governmental sector interested in going that direction.
Real quickly, I'm with the Dallas